What's up everyone, my name is Zach and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be bringing you a spoiler-free new release video reviewing Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney and I go way back. Hopefully I can remember. I will link in the description box below. I've actually read and ranked and reviewed every single Alice Feeney book in one video. And I'll post that. Hopefully I remember to link it in the description box below. If not, if you go back in my channel, you will see it. So I've read every single Alice Feeney book, and I'm looking forward to telling you about how this one's similar and different from her other ones. Yeah, really looking forward to reviewing this book for you guys. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, helps me out a ton. It's how I get these new releases early for you guys to review, to help you decide if you want to get the book, if you want to borrow the book, or if you've already read it, to either talk about what you thought about the book or hear other people's opinions. So subscribing helps me out a ton. A like on the video goes a long way. And then I would love to know in the comments, like, have you liked Alice Feeney's other books? Do you plan to read this? Have you already read it? If so, leave your spoiler-free comments below in the comment section. If you want to talk about spoilers, I'm always open to being DM'd on Discord. My Discord is also linked below. It's free for everyone to join the community. But if you also just want to DM me and talk about the book, I'm always happy to discuss. So yeah, I have a lot of things to tell you guys about in this video. So let's start with some basic information first. This book releases on January 14th. I had a NetGalley audio copy of the book. So thank you so much to the publisher and NetGalley for an early access copy in exchange for an honest review, which I'm doing here in this video. Yeah, and then my overall rating for this book was 4 stars. 4 stars. So I had a lot of varying opinions at times. I thought this book was going to be a new favorite. At other times, I was like, oh, it's going to be a 3-star. I just had a lot of varying opinions about this book throughout it. So let's start off by talking about some keywords. So some things that are just keywords from this book that really stood out to me, or things that I really loved about the book. What you'll get from these keywords are either things that you also enjoy or things that you don't, and might be reasons why you don't want to pick up the book, or might be less likely or more likely to enjoy it. So the keywords for Beautiful Ugly are: it takes place on an island. There is journalism, messy, messy time, like the story messes with time. There's creepy island residents. You can't escape the island. There's a reclusive author. It feels like Wayward Pines at times. Missing people. Jump scares. Lots and lots of jump scares. Mixed media. And a great book to discuss. And then there's a really creepy scene in a phone booth. So those are kind of like my keywords for the story. So let me tell you very briefly what this is about. Actually, this is one of the few books that I want to read you guys the synopsis of. I don't always do this, but I feel like sometimes with thrillers in particular, it's helpful to know exactly what's given to you all. And I did read the synopsis again to make sure I didn't think like it gave too much or anything. I actually felt like it did a really good job summarizing what to expect in this book, and then I'll give you guys my review. So it says, it's a gripping and deliciously dark thriller about marriage, and revenge. Author Grady Green is having the worst, best day of his life. Grady calls his wife to share some exciting news as she is driving home. He hears Abby slam on the brakes, get out of the car, then nothing. When he eventually finds her car by the cliff edge, the highlights are on, the driver door is open, her phone is still there, but his wife has disappeared. A year later, Grady is overcome with grief and desperate to know what happened to Abby. He can't sleep, he can't write, so he travels to a tiny Scottish island to try to get his life back on track. Then he sees the impossible, a woman who looks exactly like his missing wife. Wives think their husbands will change, but they don't. Husbands think their wives will change, but they don't. Yeah, so that's a great summary of what you can expect plot-wise in the story. Let me tell you about some other things that I liked and didn't like about this book. So there are some like interesting things about the island. The island is almost its own character. I thought this book was going to be a new favorite up until the end, which I'll give you guys a spoiler-free reason why that is at the end of this review. I loved this book all the way up until the end. The island is a very unique and creepy place. There are no birds for some reason. There are no birds on the island, and the trees must be protected at all cost. So the 25 people who reside on the island only let certain people come onto the island at certain times, and there's a lot of rules that have to be followed in order to protect this island. Our main character Grady is going there to try to finish a book that he needs to get published. He stays in a cabin where a once very reclusive writer, very popular writer, wrote at. And so when Grady arrives at this island, like the synopsis says, he thinks he sees someone who looks just like his missing wife. And he's kind of chasing that throughout this story. This is very much a horror thriller, and it reminds me in a lot of ways of Dead 11. Dead 11 is a much longer book. I've talked about this book for years on my channel. I really, really love this book. If you like the way Beautiful Ugly sounds, you should give this a try. But yeah, if you have already read Dead 11 or have heard me talk about Dead 11, Beautiful Ugly very much reminds me of Dead 11. It borders horror and thriller. There are a lot of elements of both throughout this book. There are some legitimately creepy jump scares, so just be aware. There are often times where someone is standing and then someone's behind them. There's just a lot of creepiness and eeriness to the story. The atmosphere and the tension is built very well throughout the whole story. The pacing is good, however, towards the end it gets a little bit off, as does everything towards the end of the book. But I loved so much of this book up until the end that I could not give it less than 4 stars. And honestly, as I've sat on the end a little bit longer, it's grown on me. And I wouldn't say I could give this book 5 stars, but maybe 4.5. I would say it borders around that range. But I still have some complaints about it. And though I loved so many other things about it, I think the most honest star review would be a 4-star from me. This book goes back and forth in time and dual perspective at times. So we get the perspective of Abby, his missing wife, of time leading up to her disappearance. And that's thrown in throughout the story. She's an investigative journalist, and something she does is write about stories because she investigates them and writes about them. And when Grady is staying on this island, he keeps getting newspaper clippings of writings from her, like journalism stories that she has written. They keep like getting slipped under the door, and so there's like some mixed media because of that, which I found very interesting. Yeah, so there's sort of a dual timeline and sort of a multiple POV, but most of our time takes place with Grady on the island as he's getting to know like the residents, and they all kind of have their own backstories. They're all very unique in different ways. It's very interesting. I did receive this on audio, and so I wanted to say that the audio is very, very good. It adds a lot of sound effects. It adds to like the creepiness and the atmosphere. So if you're someone who likes audiobooks, I would highly recommend that you try this on audio. Because of the way the story is written and the way that things are described on the island with time, and again, he's trapped on the island. He can't get off because of the way the ferry works. Like the ferry that comes and takes people to and fro the island, and he doesn't have a car. He's not allowed to bring his car. I don't think he has his phone either. If he has his phone, there's no cell service, but I think he might have his phone, but there's no cell service on the island at all. So there's very much this sense of being trapped. But then also because there's like this messing with time and everything feels so creepy. And like I said before, like very Wayward Pines-esque, you get kind of disoriented as a reader, which is a good thing in the story. You're not confused. There's nothing confusing about this plot, but you get a little disoriented, which I really enjoyed that. Some of the writing is a little bit cringe at times, I'm not going to lie, but if you've read Alice Feeney before, then you're kind of used to that. It can be a little cringy. Yeah. My favorite Alice Feeney books are Daisy Darker and Rock, Paper, Scissors. I think those are like my top 2. Gosh, she has so many books that I've read. But I would say, yeah, this is my 3rd favorite of hers. I did like Daisy Darker and Rock, Paper, Scissors more, but Beautiful Ugly would definitely be number 3. Her books that I've read in the past just were not as good as these. This definitely is better than Bad Blood, which came out last year. A Good Girl, Bad Blood, something like that. I did not like that book at all. This one is much, much better. But again, a lot of those key words that I enjoy are in this book, like mixed media, being trapped on an island, missing people, kind of disorienting. And it has a lot to offer. But what is Alice Feeney known for? She is known for her plot twist. So let's talk about that spoiler free. I predicted this book. It is pretty predictable. There's one major twist that I did not predict and I thought was really good and really well done. However, the reason why the twist happened and like what's happening after, I fully predicted. I came up with a lot of outlandish things that I thought would be a fun answer. And to be honest, I wish it would have been one of those more outlandish things. The reason why all of this happened, I didn't like. And it's not really because I predicted it. I just felt very disjointed, not very shocking. And you have to suspend a lot of disbelief, which is fine. I expect that when I read thrillers and particularly when I read Alice Feeney. But I just felt like there were so many other better reasons why, in my opinion. But the answer still is very valid and very interesting. And so I probably would have given it 3 stars had it not been for that. There's just some elements of the reveal that I'm like, really? Like, that is irritating because it either doesn't make sense or was too convenient. And then there are some other elements that I'm like, okay, that was interesting, which is why I keep going back and forth between what I want to rate this book. But the very last scene in the book, it ends kind of open-ended, which is another point. I think that this would make a great book to discuss or to read with other people. The ending is something you're going to want to talk about, and I think it's going to be pretty divisive, though I think that this will be much more highly rated than her books since Daisy Darker and Rock, Paper, Scissors. I think most people did not like her last release. So I think that this one will be much higher rated because the atmosphere and the tension is so well built across the book that it's really just going to come down to like, what do people think about the answer? Again, there's one good twist that I think most people will like, but then there are some elements of suspending disbelief that I think people are going to have a problem with. The very last scene, though, will be one that I will think about forever because it was very interesting. Very interesting. Let me check my notes here and just make sure I haven't forgot anything. Yeah, the longer I sit on this book, the more that I like it. It's very creepy, very unsettling. And whereas some of the dialogue and character actions are immature in the writing otherwise is really good. Also, there's a map of the island. So if you're like a nerd for maps like I am, I thought that was really cool. Yeah, all in all, this is a very solid book. I'll be interested to see how it holds up to other thrillers coming out in 2025. That would be a fun video to do at the end of 2025, like take a look at the trends and things. The island survival trend has been a trend for a long time, and I know that some people are getting tired of it. It's one of my favorites, so I'm not getting tired of it by any means. I have like a whole journal page for island survival stories. However, I do think recently it's gotten a lot more popular. Like we're seeing a lot more of them, because I think it's an interesting way for authors to build a story, especially when people are trapped or there's a storm. It's kind of like the whole like forcing people to work on things, but also when there's a lot of tension, it creates more tension. But this story didn't have those elements because there are so few residents on the island. It's not really about survival. This one isn't really an island survival. It's more of a what the heck is happening, and is that his missing wife or not? And if it is, why is she here? How did she get here? What does this mean for the missing person's case? Yeah, this is a very different take on the island survival story, I will say. It would be like if you mashed Wayward Pines with an island survival story and a thriller. And again, very similar to Dead 11. Okay, I think I've given you guys all of my honest thoughts on this book. I definitely had a really good time with it. Would love to discuss with more people. And if you're going to read this book, I would definitely recommend considering reading it with someone else, because the ending is one that you're probably going to want to discuss with other people. You can come over to the Discord or pick a friend or whatever you want. I'm also happy to discuss with you. Or if you want to talk spoiler free, please leave those in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys, all the thoughts about this book. And I'm very excited to see how this is received from readers in 2025. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.